On the 8th and 9th of December 2022, the 41st edition of the annual BAM Marketing Congress took place. The Belgian Association of Marketing, event organizer OFCORES, AdSomeNoise and Aluvision joined forces to meet with the most inspiring national and international marketing speakers for a fun chat. The result is 13 unique podcasts with fascinating marketing stories, useful tips and tricks, anecdotes, and so much more. In this episode, I talked with Brice Le Blevennec. He was a co-founder of Imakina, Belgium's largest digital marketing agency, and he wrote a book called Visions of a Better World. There he dissected 30 great challenges we face, from food production to even immortality. Oh, and he wants to put an end to collapsology? In this podcast, we're sending you back to the future. Hi Brice, thanks for being here and thank you for your talk at the Marketing Congress.
Thank you, Steven, for inviting me.
For people who haven't seen your talk, can you maybe summarize it in a few minutes and what's the main idea that you are bringing?
So the book is named Vision of a Better World. It exists in English and in French. And I examine 30 big topics, 30 big challenge of humanity. Mm-hmm. Food, art, transportation, energy, space travel, and reproduction. And I try to study the problems and find way of solving it. I don't have all the solution, but at least I have some ideas on how we should search and what we should try to dig further to solve those big issues of humanity. And it's also a funny book because every chapter starts by a science fiction story happening in 2051, so it's 30 years from now. And then I goes into the vision itself and then a kind of more Cartesian demonstration with lots of references.
Mm-hmm. So this makes you kind of a geek Harari, I would say. And so,
exactly.
So how do you feel the human race will evolve the next 30 years? It's in the book, of course, but...
Yeah, it's a vague question. There's lots of topics.
It's
so
a vague question,
which one are you? Okay, I can just, to give you some idea, every chapter goes from science, so very likely to happen, to fiction, very unlikely to happen unless we break some law of physics, okay? So all the chapters are in that order, and in between you got other stage like innovation, disruption, etc. So the most likely thing that impact our civilization is, of course, the advent of machine learning and deep learning and AI that is really changing deeply every field. And in the book, I start by the chapter about art. So I examine how art will be impacted with new AI-based tool. You know that in the latest version of Photoshop and Adobe Creative Suite, you can create textures and invent part in the missing part in the picture thanks to AI. But it's going really further. AI being able now to compose classical symphonies or create a track from the Beatles without the Beatles, to write text or games and chat and create 3D models, etc., etc. So we see that it's gonna impact a lot our whole civilization. Not just the practice of art, but who's the author? What about protecting the right of designers once the art has been digested by machine learning and people are creating new art in their style? Who's the author, etc., etc. What about financing the right of authors once an AI is writing for them, etc., etc. So there's a lot of stuff about just art and AI, and this is the first chapter on 30 chapters in the book.
Okay, I will read them all, I promise. So one of the things Harari also mentioned is, I think in his later, in the second book, is like once we solve all problems that we used to solve in the past, we will solve them at the moment. What will be meaning then? because solving problems and surviving and looking for a way to move forward is something that keeps us busy. If all these things are solved, what will give us meaning? What's your take on that?
So if you read the book, you'll understand that we will never solve all problems.
Okay.
We are constantly facing new problems and trying to find our ways, avoid them, and sometimes civilization disappear, new civilization are born, and we always are faced to new problems.
Okay.
Every solution has also created new problems. Electricity create new problems, nuclear create new problems, but there is also some interesting things we can explore with nuclear. And so every new advance creates its own problem that we have to solve and move to the next one. Yeah. Since the invention of the wheel.
Yeah, so it's actually good. We should embrace these problems. We should.
Yeah, the main trigger that made me write this book is really fighting collapsology. That vision that the world is gonna end, there is not enough resource for everyone, yes. And we should restrict ourselves to eating the potato from the neighbor garden and not travel anymore and don't experience the world and discover anything because we won't be able to travel. It's not sustainable. Blah blah blah. This is something I really want to fight, and I really believe that we need to experience more and open more possibilities. But for that, we need to trust science approach, the scientific approach, the technical progress, and the human ingenuity. Yeah. With the creativity, the technology, and the scientific approach, we can solve every problem that we created. Yeah. Because most of the problem that we are facing it, we create them, and then we solve them, and we create new ones, and then we solve them, and we create since the dawn of the world, and this will never end.
No, what about society, legislation? And because I interviewed Mieke de Ketelaar, who is in artificial intelligence, and one of the things she said is scientists just want to solve problems, so they move forward. They don't care what will be done with it. So there we need legislation to kind of push it into a certain direction or put a layer on top of it. So I can imagine that's important as well.
Of course, but the legislation is just a translation in the text of the moral or the ethics of a certain moment of society. Yes. But society evolves. Let's see, just in Belgium, can you imagine that in France, euthanasia, it's a total taboo and totally forbidden, while it's generally accepted in Belgium and legal. So the science has no ethics, really. They're not even solving problems. They just want to understand the world. Mm-hmm. It's just facts, searching for understanding the world. That's all. There's no moral in there. And then using science and progress and human creativity, the fantastic imagination of humans, we find new possibilities. Then those possibilities are sometimes there is no law, which is the case for a lot of things around AI today. Yes. We have no idea what would be the law of property of rights on new creation based on someone else's work. So we need to invent new laws. Sometimes it's against the law. Yes. And sometimes the law will change because the society change and ethics change. Ethics is really a problem. It's different from one country to another one. If we would apply the rules of Saudi Arabia to Belgium, it would be really difficult for having all those women with their hair and and if we would apply the ethics of Belgium in Saudi Arabia with euthanasia, gay marriage, and so the law are just an expression of a certain ethics and moral of society at a certain time, and it will evolve because we cannot stop the progress. It's very difficult to stop the progress. We will use CRISPR-Cas9 and have mutation in vegetables because we can solve millions of people by having better agriculture. We're going to be 9 to 11 billion people. If we don't allow ourselves this tool, we will have to kill billions of people. What's more ethics? Killing billions of people or using the tool at hand? So then, the law will just evolve. Science will prevail in the end. In the end, it's very difficult to stop the insane curiosity of the human being. It reminds me of the story of abortion in the States, where everybody was very against, but what they saw, like 20 years later, after it was
legal. There was a lot less crime because people ended up in criminal means if they were born after all. So it's always like
Exactly.
just reality.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So 30 years. You're looking 30 years ahead of you. This puts you right in the middle right now because you're in the industry for 30 years, I would say.
That's
more
true.
or less. So it's looking back, looking forward. It's an interesting position to be in. So in 30 years you will be like 80, I would assume. So
Exactly. Thank you, Steven.
Something like that. I did my research. Otherwise, I would have said 70, of course, please. But I know it's going to be 80. So. I guess a lot has changed the last 30 years.
Yes.
In the industry,
30 years ago, the internet did not exist. The smartphone did not exist. The GPS did not exist. I remember having to date a girl and going into by train in Antwerp with my paper map. I never met the girl. I couldn't call her. There's no phone. Fixed phone, but no mobile phone. So I went back to Brussels in train, and I never met her. Thanks God, the world has changed. But I saw so incredible changes. My first computer was a ZX81. It had 1K of memory. 1K. 1K is 1 megabyte is you divide it by 1 million, you got 1K. Yeah. So 1 terabyte, you divide it by 1 million, and you got 1K. And in my phone today, I got 1 terabyte. In my phone, I got 1 terabyte. Can you imagine that it's 1,000 million more than my first computer? And I won't talk about the speed of my first computer. It was a ZX80 processor running at 16 megahertz. And today we're more like at 5 gigahertz. So the factors are so big that you can imagine that, of course, it won't be the same speed again. But 30 years is really far in terms of tech. Just this year, we went from barely creative text stories to AI that can generate a whole movie based just on the text description. So we went from text describing text story with GPT-3, then we had creation of image with DALL-E and Imagen and all those, and now we have engine creating videos in less than a year. So now imagine that times 30. I have no idea, but maybe each of us will have like a brain implant feeding us incredible stories made to optimize our emotion based on our past reading. And, one thing I can tell you, it's impossible to imagine how far we will be in 30 years.
Yes, because...
It'll be beyond your current imagination. Because, let me give you another example.
Sure.
When I was a teenager, I had a friend who was a geek too, and we had both access to the first computers, and we were imagining, will be the future, the computer really of the future when we'll be very old, It would have 1,000 pixel by 1,000 pixel, which is less than my Apple Watch, and it would have 1,000 color, which is less than my watch, and it would have memory of 1 megabyte, which is less than my watch. Can you imagine that the biggest thing we could imagine is not even what I have in my watch today?
Yeah, and as they say, a typical smartphone has way more computing power than the first space shuttles they sent to the moon. So
exactly.
So it asks a lot of imagination. I think the role for science fiction is there to make us dream and make us think, I guess. I guess you're a science fiction fan yourself.
Yes, and the science fiction has also inspired a lot of scientists and researchers, and in the Silicon Valley too, a lot of the people there trying to do, Amazon Alexa, and they're really inspired by things they read as teenager, science fiction. The guy that are trying to make drone which allow you to fly from one place to another, and all of us are pretty much cyborg today. If you remember, cyborgs are half men and half robots, and we are almost that with our smartphones. We have access to infinite knowledge and instant communication globally. This is less than what it's more than what expected cyborgs being able to do in science fiction I was reading when I was a teenager. So science fiction is really a way of inspiring the future, and this is why I started each of my chapter in the book by a science fiction story that depicts something which is crazy, unbelievable, but then we enter the vision, and Then we enter the rationalization part, and there's a QR code that link to page with tens and dozens of links to white paper, research paper, innovation, proof of concept, video, etc. that show that it is a possibility.
Yes, we want to prove that it will be possible, while in the end we should just dream. In the end we should just dream.
But dreaming is one part. Yeah. But one of the reasons why I wrote this book is because I want also to motivate the kids that start studying to go study science and research instead of trying to get rich or famous as an influencer or doing Solvay economic study and to become a banker. Yeah. No, this is so boring. It's much more interesting to try to tackle the big challenge of science. We need them. And also I want companies to invest more into innovation and less into marketing. I want government to subsidize research more than, the next Amazon logistics center. I know it creates jobs, but we also need more money into research. So I hope that this book will inspire at least a few kids to make this future a possibility instead of trying to get rich. That's so boring.
Okay, I'll use your book to read my kids bedtime stories, so they get it with them. So.
Yes, good idea.
Did you enjoy this episode? Leave your opinion on LinkedIn with the hashtag BAM Marketing Congress, and let's continue the discussion. Stay up to date with other BAM news through marketing.be, and keep December 7th and 8th, 2023 open in your calendar for the 42nd edition of the BAM Marketing Congress. See you there.